this schedule really shapes up for a playoff run with a 12-team playoff.
Areas that, you need to get from experience, which is just, hey, I need to make quicker decisions.
How do you define success for this team?
National championship.
What's going on, y'all? I'm Bud Elliott. This is the Cover 3 College Football Podcast, and today, Summer School Series rolls on. We try to talk as many D1 teams as we possibly can. It's about 70 in all, and today it's Wake Forest. That's my man, Cam Lemons Debro of Deacon Digest. Say that 3 times fast. Cam, welcome back to the show, dude.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing today, bud?
I'm doing well, man. I'm really excited about this one because, first of all, you guys are like the source for Wake Forest. So that is, I read as much as I can. But there's so much, I think, that is still unknown to me about this team, and I want to pick your brain about it. Let's do this thing.
We're finding it all out together.
Huge change now, right? With obviously Jake Dickert coming in from Washington State. What is the general reaction of the program and the fan base to the hire?
Well, the first thing was shock. I think when we all were sitting at our desk that day in December and you see the Pete Thamel tweet come out of Clausen's stepping down, everyone's just like, what's going on here? It was a really expedited hire. They didn't want to take too long to hire a new coach, especially when it happened. And then you kind of landed on Jake Dickert, a guy who has been, at Washington State for a couple of years. Cam Ward, had some really good quarterbacks coming through there. John Mateer. The first thought was, okay, they had to do something. You had to go hire something. And I thought it was a really smart idea to not go hire someone that it's their first job. I don't think this was a time that this is going to be baby's first head coaching job, given where the ACC is, given where Wake Forest is. We talk about everything of realignment, not at a point where you can say, hey, go get a defensive coordinator somewhere. But you bring in Dickert, who, has had a lot of talent, but the last couple of years, the last couple of months of the season, things kind of went wonky. You're like, okay, what's going on there? But then you also realize at Washington State, you're like, you don't have the resources to do a lot of things. And so you bring him in here, and the first word you hear about it is energy. And this dude is going and going and going. You're watching spring practice, and everyone's having a ton of fun. And you're like, wait a second, where has this been in the last couple of years? And so, right now, optimism is probably the best word for it.
I like it. All right. So, obviously, more NIL to play with at Wake Forest than at Washington State. No, Wake's been trying to step that up in a major way with the house. Let's talk offense first. Who's calling it? What are they running? What do we think this is going to look like?
So he went and hired Robbie Zell from South Alabama. I thought South Alabama's offense last year was really, really fun to watch. I think what they're going to run is pretty simple. It's going to be called Damon Claiborne's in the backfield. You give the ball to him 25 to 30 times. While that's mostly a joke, they are going to lean on Damon Claiborne. They're paying him for a reason. They brought him back for a reason. He was getting offers from national title contenders to be their starting running back, and that was one of their biggest acquisitions, was keeping him. So I think this is going to be a very run-heavy offense. We're not really sure on who the quarterback is right now. It could be Robbie Ashford. It could be Deshaun Purdy. 2 transfers from South Carolina and Charlotte, respectively. But I think they really do like what they have at wide receiver. They really like guys like Sawyer Kanell, Micah Mays, RJ Vick, Carlos Hernandez. But I think right now the identity of this offense is we are going to punch you in the face with the run game.
How would you differentiate Ashford and Purdy?
Yeah, Ashford, I think you know who he is. He's been around the block for a few years. He is, I think, more stable in terms of he's going to make plays with his feet. And he's going to give you a solid floor of, if this play is breaking down, I'm going to go run for 10, 15 yards. Purdy is a little more volatile, and I think he has the upside. His upside is insane. I think he's working through some bad habits, but when you watch him out there, he's everything you want a NFL quarterback to be. 6'5", 230. When he breaks the ripcord, he can run, and his deep balls, I think, one of the best I've seen. Is just, is that consistency going to be there? I think that's where we're trying to see right now between spring and fall is who has the more consistency.
That the early season schedule, I feel like, probably helps them break it in. Kennesaw, Western Carolina, NC State at home, and then the bye week before Georgia Tech comes to town. So that'll be interesting to watch that develop. You mentioned a lot of receivers. If there's a guy who becomes, obviously Claiborne is very fantasy relevant, assuming that one of the quarterbacks doesn't kind of, vulture all of his touchdowns in the red zone. Is there a receiver who could like take the majority of the target share on this team?
I think people have really gotten comfortable with. I'm gonna cheat and go two ways. Sawyer Racanelli and Carlos Hernandez. Carlos is a guy that came with them from Washington State. He can play inside, he can play out, and I think he's got some speed. I think he's also going to be on kick return as well, so I think he can kind of double dip there. Sawyer, he came from, I believe, Montana, and has just kind of caught everything. Like you watched him during spring ball, and it was like, oh, that's going to go. Oh, you sure? And so I think those are two guys that have been really just sure-handed. They've stayed healthy. I think that's a really big thing. They've stayed healthy. And I think those are two guys that the coaching staff are like, hey, these could be some dudes this year.
Absolutely. I mean, looking at this, Cam, they don't play Clemson.
No.
They don't play Miami. They don't play Louisville.
Nope.
They do get SMU.
At home.
Right. They get Florida State, which was terrible last year.
Right.
Probably is going to be better this year. I'd be surprised they went 2-10 again. But I mean, who's like, if FSU is the second best defense you play, and I'm not sure it is, it might be Duke. Like Duke returns a ton.
Yeah, they do.
Like who's like the fourth best defense this team? Like this team is going to score some points, I think, right? If they get quarterback play,
they're going to score some points. And it's one of those things. You look at the schedule and you talk to people, and you hear this kind of quiet optimism. You go, "There's not a ton of people I'm scared about right now." Right. and I think where the bye weeks fall is also really nice for them as well in terms of that, but. If you're saying the fourth best defense is Virginia because they got 17 corners out of the portal, I'm going to take that and run with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of optimistic about this. I can see it. I can see it going down, but I think ultimately I like it.
Yeah.
Let's hit a break here. And on the flip side, let's talk a little Wake Forest defense.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, guys, welcome back into the Cover 3 College Ball Podcast. This is our summer school series. We're talking Wake Forest with Deacon Digest, Cam Livens, Debro. Cam, all right, basically same question on defense. Who's calling it? What are they running? Do they have the guys to run it?
I think Michigan State fans are going to yell at me because I'm going to bring up the name Scotty Hazleton. When he got announced, my mentions were a dumpster fire. And I get it. I get it. The tenure at Michigan State wasn't good. But I did a video on this for the site. And, when you peel back the layers of everything else, his defenses have been pretty good everywhere else that didn't involve Mel Tucker. So I'm going to try to believe in that. They say they want to be aggressive. That's every defense's buzzword. They want to be aggressive. They want to play up. They want to do this. Do you have the people up front? I think it really does start up front with them with, their defensive linemen. They went and retooled an entire defensive line. They kind of had to. Everyone graduated. But you got Gabe Kershke from Colorado State, Noor Gafkuth with him as well. Langston Hardy from UConn. His brother is a really good player for Wake as well on the defensive line. I really believe in that, that defensive line right now. I think they just attack. They attack. They're really happy with the linebackers, whether that's Dylan Hazen or Quincy Bryant. I think they could probably still add one more there, but then, really everything kind of hinges like it did last year. How healthy are you at corner? I think there is a lot of talent there with Sasha Garcia, who was an All-American at William & Mary. I think there's a lot of talent with Karan Prunty, who was solid at North Carolina A&T. But I think you can tell how not so comfortable they were in terms of just make sure this position was right, because they went and got, Ashad Williams from North Alabama, during the spring portal. They went and got Lardarius Webb Jr. Yes, if you're thinking Lardarius Webb, that is a son, you're that old.
Wow.
But I think that was a position where they went, we can't have too many bodies there. That's, we need to add there. But I think, everywhere else they feel great. Safety, a guy like Devon Patterson, they love, but it's going to hinge on the corners.
Is there a guy in this defense who has like first team all ACC potential?
I think Devon Patterson is at safety is that guy. I think he can cover. I think he can hit. I know he can hit. He almost gets thrown out every game. But I think he's a guy that if you talk to everyone around the program and people scouting him, he should go get an agent, because I think this is the money year for him. And there's a lot of potential, and they're going to ask a lot of him. They're going to put him in the box. They're going to put him up high. They're going to put him at the slot. There's going to be a lot put on him this year. And I think he's able to take that jump.
Do you feel better about the pass rush or the run stopping ability?
Pass rush. I think, I'm never such a big fan of, I love their defensive tackles, that Jaden Loving and Dallas Afalava. I think those guys are good players. I'm never really the most fond of shorter defensive tackles. I think that those can be they can get washed in the run game a little bit easier. But I think when it comes to, pinning their ears back, those guys and the edges, I think they can really get after it.
How do you think, are they playing 4 down, 3 down? I assume 4 down.
They're gonna stay 4 down. I think there are gonna be some times they'd be fine going 3 down, but I think they have too much at DT to take 2 of them off the field, and I don't think any of them can really play kind of a strong side edge. So I think they're going to probably stay 4 down right now.
Is there a guy in this team who either, let's say, finally reaches his potential, or maybe on the flip side, maybe he reaches his potential a year earlier than people expect him to, that could really flip this team's fortunes? And you can't say quarterback because that's kind of cheating.
I can go on one on each side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, Clinton Richard. He was, I think he was a high 3-star coming out of Atlanta. He plays guard, and the offensive line I think is good, but I think it can take a step. I think it can take, and you can never have too many good offensive linemen just go look at the portal. If he can push to be a really good guard, that makes the quarterback's lives easier. That makes Damon Claiborne's life a hell of a lot easier. And then on the flip side, on the defense, I'm really intrigued to see what happens at corner. I think Trayvon West is someone that both staffs have really liked so far, but if they can get him to be a playable corner, I think and be like that potential, I think, everyone starts feeling a lot easier about where they're at.
They certainly will play a couple teams that'll spread them out. So you're probably going to need 3 for sure.
Right.
With this schedule, granted, it's year 1, new coordinators both sides of the ball, a lot of new players. How do you define success for Wake Forest in 25?
Make a bowl. That's something that was the standard Dave Clawson set, was you need to make a bowl here at Wake Forest. And I think getting back to that when you haven't the last 2 years is success. And I think anything past that is solid. I know that's not how the coach thing. I think the coaches are like, hey, we can win 9-10 games here, etc. But for me, can you get back to a bowl game? Because I think there are still some holes here, but if you can make it back to, a 6 or probably 7, I think 7 wins is probably where I want to put it at. Is, can you get there? That'll be okay, this was a successful first year for Jake Dickert.
Awesome, man. I know we're following all the coverages here on Triple D and following you on Twitter as well. Cam, I appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me, bud.
Enjoyed it.